나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Hello, everyone. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you, friends, for being here. And I certainly hope this podcast finds you in good health and secure. I'm going to put several links in the description of this video for discussions related here. I've done a two-part video on the 9 consciousnesses about 3 months ago, so that's still recent. I've also talked about the Nidana and the Skandhas. I've talked about all of these things before. So I want to do something a little unique today. And I want to read from Julius Evola's book on the doctrine of awakening from the early texts of Buddha's teachings. And he talks at length about each of the 12 length causal chain, the Nidana. And I don't want to read the whole thing. I don't want to, but it's really worth reading. I really encourage you to buy a copy of this book. And, it's just really good study material for this foundational thinking of Buddhism. His words, his vernacular, it's an old book, so it might seem a little foreign to you as you read it, but you'll get into the rhythm of it and understand it because you practice Lotus Sutra and so many more evolved Mahayana teachings through this channel, through your own practice. You'll be able to see with how definitive the language is that he's using as he's describing things that we already know. So I'm just going to read like the first paragraph or portion of the paragraph for each element so you have an idea. And the reason I want to do that is because I'm then going to read, I'm going to read to you a lot today, a discussion of the 5 aggregates, which will go through, and it's an exhaustive discussion, so I'm going to do the same thing with this translation of Vasubandhu, and just read the essential without digging into every little bit of it. And I encourage you, if this is of interest to you, to look for it on Google, find a publication, a discussion of the 5 aggregates, the Panchaskandha Prakarana. Not that I think that's Sanskrit. I don't know how much that'll help you. Just a discussion of the 5 aggregates will probably pop up on Amazon, and you'll be able to purchase that book. Why am I doing this? Well, there are many whys, right? Why is that darn trap of samsara? But what I'm trying to accomplish here with this video specifically isn't so much that you become even more of an expert about the Nidana and more of an expert about the Skandhas and the 9 consciousnesses. What I want to do is tie all of this together from a conformal cyclical universe that is just energy to the first steps of instantiation. You've heard me talk about this energy and work becoming the energy of becoming, karma, attachment. And I want to relate that through the teachings of the Nidana, the Skandhas, and the 9 consciousnesses, so that you can see a clear line of logic that when we talk about samsara, this perception, this existence, right, in this world, and we use the terms attachment, suffering, dukkha, a world of disappointment, because of the initial mistake of trying to make things permanent, right? We talk, that's just common lingo for us. But I want you to see the link that this nature, this ingrained selfhood, identification causing self and other, therefore clinging, craving, all of that begins with the very formation of the universe. The very first steps of work and energy are all about a collection, an amalgam, a collecting of more energy, more work. Identification happens at that level. And when you study these different early teachings, mid-teachings, more evolved teachings, early Mahayana, late Mahayana, and certainly it's assumed you know by the time you study the Lotus that this is why Ichinen and Sanzen, this is why the nature of mutable versus what used to be immutable karma, why there were divisions like this, is because of this foundational understanding that what it takes, or what the a priori is for this instantiation of this me-ness, this humanness, with our perception of gathering, qualifying, cubbying, defining, distincting. We're made of it. Our cells are made of it. So understanding the profundity of the challenge that we have to somehow remain and exist in this form with all of that going on, but to not mentally not be influenced by it. That is no small task, my friends. So please, 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 when I say be kind to yourself, that's what I'm speaking to directly. You will have moments when you chant for 20, 30 minutes, and you will feel a glow, like something other than what you normally are. And it'll be hard to grasp because you'll be grasping through your samsaric human mind. But it can be done. You will experience it. It just will be very hard to define because everything in your mind that knows how to define relies on its habit of distinctions and clinging and permanence. So it can be just a feeling of other. And then the more you practice every day, and you practice for years, you'll become more familiar with that state. And you'll become more accepting of its difference, its uniqueness. And at some point, you'll get comfortable with it. And you'll just want to be in it. You won't want to speak. You won't make a sound. You just want to take it all in. You will grin. It's hard not to. Everything gets so simple. And part of that is your suffering, your stuckness, your dukkha is lifting. It's relaxing its hold on you. This is what we're after. Our transcending that mechanism that starts way before you ever came to be. Billions of years, time. Because Buddha-ness is without time. It's quite a disparate existence, experience. And that's the thing of it, is it can only be experienced. So I want you to understand the grandeur and the weight of your endeavor. But I also want you to understand that with this tool of Daimoku and this mandala, as ignorant as we are about that state of being, we can invoke it now, right now. And to be in that state without using this tool, not that you should ever stop, but that's the goal, is that you don't have to chant and use this mirror of your Gohonzon to open the gate of Buddhahood whenever you want. In other words, our goal is to walk this existence with that experience. And the more you practice, the more you'll make that sensation last without slipping away. And you'll know, you'll feel, you'll be able to identify after maybe a month, and maybe it'll take you a year. It doesn't matter, because you can experience it right away. But hanging on to it as a perceptive, the minute you walk away, you're using your feet, you're planted on the ground, your being in your human mind is highly influencing you back to samsara. But you'll still have residual lightness of being until you stub your toe or something happens to snap you back to the monkeys. Right? So this is a teaching that's not obvious at first, because we get so admired in the words. What does that mean? What does that say? But that's our human mind, boy, wanting to categorize and put things in order and understand. And all we have to do to really understand is chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo with this mandala to open that gate. And there's understanding. It's been there all along. But at first, until you experience that, you simply have to have resolute mind. Now you understand? You have to decide, I want that clarity, that understanding, that experience of clarity and understanding. Because right now all of this gibberish doesn't make sense to me. Well, don't worry about that. That's your human mind confusing you. It's putting up roadblocks. What are those roadblocks? The energy that amalgamated in the first place, karma, getting in the way. Samsara getting in the way. So, in a way, you could say attaining enlightenment, Buddhahood, is a state of experience that actually needs that whole karma to instantiate this being, so you can have this mind, so that you can clear this mind. So there's a deep appreciation for that very same karma, because you're no longer influenced in service of that karma. that karma becomes in service to your Buddhahood. You flip the script. And all of this that I've just said in plain talk is exactly what these teachings have been from the get-go. And so the second part of this talk is not only for you to realize how profound karma is and how it can be your greatest obstacle, but also your most profound, essential support for your Buddha mind, for your Buddha-ness. Do you see where compassion comes in here? Once you realize that about your own life, and then you look around at others, oh, you guys have no idea the work you have to do. How can I help you get there? That's where those statements come from. That's where bodhisattva practice launches you to the maximal level of your Buddha experience in this lifetime. It's not enough to just simply liberate yourself and live in a cavern. That's not effective. It's not really full enlightenment. It's a selfish barrier you've put between yourself. You've isolated yourself from the world. So freeing yourself may be satisfactory, but that's an attachment too. That's an egotistical attachment, isn't it? This is why Mahayana Buddhists look down their nose at Hinayana Buddhists, because their whole goal is self-enlightenment. But without walking the path within the society to affect others, either indirectly simply by being in your Buddha-ness, or helping others to achieve directly the teachings and learning and practicing. This is where you really hone what it is to be Buddha, what it is to be in your Buddha-ness. That experience is far beyond just this selfish kind of target. That's the big difference. This is why Lotus Sutra and other Mahayana teachings talk about perfect and complete enlightenment, distinctly different from Arhat. Right? Okay, so once again, I run off with the mouth. So, conditioned genesis. First step of the 12 Nidana. The basic element of the whole series is avidya. That is to say, ignorance. But you and I understand ignorance isn't that you don't know math. Ignorance is that you don't understand the experience of Buddha-ness. Unawareness, in other words. The significance of this term in Buddhism is not essentially different from its significance in other branches of the Indo-Aryan tradition, the Samkhya or the Vedanta doctrines, for example, and where it might be figuratively illustrated by saying that man is a god who is unaware that he is such. Again, this is old writing. So God really is a stand-in for, and it's not capitalized, so it's not a specific God. It's Godding. It's man is unaware, man and woman are unaware, ignorant of the fact that we are Buddha already. But it's our samsaric mind that is keeping us from experiencing it. So we're ignorant of it. It is his unawareness, avidya, alone that makes him a man or woman, right? this perception of sex, maleness, femaleness, all of those things are the mind and its attachments, all the way down to your chromosomes. It is a question then of a state of oblivion, of deliquescence, by which the primary motive for identification with one or other form of finite and conditioned existence is determined. And so then he goes on to talk about ignorance vis-a-vis mania. So this first step of Nidana is this unawareness of what this initial energy and work coming together is about, other than this primary, you could say primordial attachment, conglomeration. The first time energy and work come together, action has been taken, a commitment has been made, an attachment, agglomeration has begun. Already, the ignorance is instantiating in the first step. I'm going to skip to the next one. That's a long one. The second one, in the connected series after avijja, follows the sankhara. This term also has variously interpreted. Literally, sankhaya kara means a formation or disposition in regard to a particular aim. There it is again. It's a subtle difference. Energy and work come together, and something comes of that work. We don't know yet what it is, but there's a direction, a state of potential motion of the first Nidana has already assumed a certain direction and has entered on the path that later development will follow. So it's already plummeting. The decision's been made. I'm coming together. What am I doing? I'm looking for what I'm doing. That's important because there's a consciousness already developing there. It's not full consciousness like you and I experience. It's an intent. And you've heard me say this for years now. Buddhism is about attitude and intent. And it starts with the very first inkling of karma. To translate sankhara by distinctions, Newman, an author, is to some extent exact, seeing that we cannot choose a direction without first having defined it and thus distinguished it from other possible directions. Right? When that first instantiation starts, it's not an instantiation yet. Well, it is, but at a very, 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 very subtle level. Energy and work are combining, and a direction out, a course has already, not so much by knowing consciousness, but by the very fact of it coming together. It's like saying when you point a flashlight at night, the likelihood that the light from that flashlight is going to go straight ahead of it and spread out isn't a decision of the flashlight, but it's a component of the very fact that it pushes light out through a mirrored existence. It's not going to push light behind you. So there is a primordial sort of a decision there just by virtue of the way it works. Very subtle, you see. But nonetheless, it's a parameter that it has not so much set as exists in, starts to exist in. Then we get to the third one. You see the subtle steps here? The sankhara, through the distinction or individuation that they imply, give place to the third Nidana, to vijnana, or consciousness. See, there it is. It wasn't long before we got to consciousness. Now, this is happening in less than an instant. But Buddhism. It slices everything as thin as possible, right? Understood as a distinctive consciousness, that kind of consciousness. That is to say, it is the germ of all that will eventually appear as individuality, as individual consciousnesses or consciousness of I, this collection of a massive amount, immeasurable amount of decisions, patterns, karma. This leads to the fourth Nidana, the Namarupa. Okay, because now you've started to distinguish what this is. Your next step is to distinguish that this is not that. And in order for this to not be that, I need a different word for it. I need to identify it. Already it's happening. At that minute, unseeable level, in less than a fraction of a second, the energy that will at some point result in such a huge agglomeration that it creates a human being, way down the road. I'm talking formation of the universe time. It's already starting to distinguish this from that from this. And in order to distinguish, I have to say this is this and that is that. Different label, different thing. Nama, rupa, name, form. All that is necessary here to extend the concept once again, thinking of the general combination of both material elements, mass or matter, and immaterial or mental, mind, that vijnana or individual consciousnesses in general needs as a base. On the level of fourth Nidana occurs the meeting of the vertical direction with the horizontal. Okay. So let's go on to the fifth. He talks a lot about this. And I made some notes here where this is involved in the decisions of life that are karma, ichinen sanzan, this is where it begins, leading to birth. So where's number 5? Wow, he talks a long time. See, I can't read all of this for you. I encourage you to find it and use it. You can tell already it's a very descriptive book, and this is why I like this book so much. It really digs in. Fifth in the 12-length chain, returning to the chain of conditioned genesis. Now you understand why it's called conditioned. The state of Nidana that follows name and form referred to the internal side of embryonic development. So Evola is taking this directly to the human experience because that's what Buddhism is about. As the fifth link of the series, we have Sadayatana. That is the assumption of the sixthfold base. By this is meant the sensory fields or strands in which, through contact, the various sense impressions and the various images of the mind will burn. In the Indo-Aryan tradition, there are always considered to be 6 senses. The 5 that we know, with the addition of the mano or manas, mind or thought. Now you see why this is no accident that I'm reading this to you. The 6 senses with the 5 that we know, and the sixth that we don't know yet is that the development of the mind is happening and thought. Do you see that in the very initial teachings of the Nidana, we're talking about the Skandhas. We're talking about the 9 consciousnesses. The thread goes all the way back to the Four Noble Truths. All life is suffering. Now, why did he say that? Because of this. that first instantiation of energy and work before anything exists, the cause is made for attachment, agglomeration, identification, and soon after identification, well, if there's an identifier, it is this me that is identifying. And if I'm going to identify, how will I identify? I need to sense these differences. And if I need to sense these differences, how do I need to sense them? Visually, texturally, sound? How are the different ways that I can sense these things? And from these desires to sense come new karma, new agglomerations, new attachments, and we start to construct eye consciousness, sound consciousness, touching, feeling consciousness, feeling touching, not feeling emotion. Right? Makes sense. But this is so fundamental to all phenomena in the universe. All phenomena. How much those specific aggregates weight the progression of this 12-linked causal chain varies. I doubt very much that a tree develops a tremendous amount of these consciousnesses. And yet it has to develop some of them just to individuate leaves, branches, trunks, bark, food in the ground, roots, nitrogen, ammonia, photosynthesis, synthesis. Woo, that was a tough one today. This is what's being described here, that act, right? 6th and 7th he actually wrote together because these are two sides of a similar function. With the 6th Nidana, Phasa, we pass from potentiality to actuality. We're moving from potential to instantiation. This is the step where that happens. Phasa literally means contact or touch. It refers to all experience that under particular stimuli begins to burn or blaze up in each of the 6 sensory fields we have mentioned. For this reason, the next Nidana is Vedana, or feeling, the affective coloring of the perceptions, sensations as a whole. Here a new development begins, which we may regard as the manifestation, the igniting of the, so to speak, transcendental mania. So the word mania is being used to indicate this now collective energy, this collective karma of collecting. It sort of speeds up. Once this process has begun, it starts to fan out and create more and more distinctions. And these distinctions are not just a desire to experience, but a sensation of experience. So the 5 skandhas are already at work, along with the 6th, the holder of consciousness, the recorder of these events. 8, the Nidana that immediately follows feeling, is therefore thirst, Tana. This awakens various sensory fields and is nourished by contact, exactly like the flame that, according to a text we have quoted, burns in every sense and includes the object, the sense organ, the contact, and the impression that follows from it, even when it is neither pleasurable nor painful, but neutral. The passions. This is all happening very fast now. 9, and as to burn on this level is the same as to be, But since the flame, in order to burn, needs material and depends on material, must have material, there follows the ninth Nidana, upadana. The term literally means to embrace. So this is a collection. It is an acceptance, a coming into possession in the sense of attachment or dependence. Now all of this is mine. Thus, many have translated the word by will or affirmation or volition, which is the opposite of detachment or rejection, right? There we are, with the ninth causal act in the chain. We're already identified, we're a self and other, and we're determined to experience this. We're not even in the womb yet. 10. In fact, all the necessary conditions for the establishment of the person are now present, and with its actual becoming, there occurs the act of synthesis. Ooh, it came out good that time. For its definite solidification as an individual being, and of its, quote, existence in a literal sense, to stand or come out in an exteriorized existence. This constitutes the 10th Nidana, bhava, which literally means becoming, and which has its counterpart in the next Nidana. What do you think the next Nidana is? I've already talked about how there's three entities involved in a birth, right? There's the womb, and there's the egg, the sperm, the karma of both of those joining at just the right moment, the right time, the right karma to entertain this third entity that's been building all through all this process, and now feels, okay, I need to see how this works. Boom, 11, birth, jati, is often thought of also as descent. I don't know. This is the Western mind. We like to see everything in some kind of a vertical hierarchy, right? From the 5th to the 10th Nidana, we are concerned with states that develop in a complementary manner to embryonic life, starting from conception with the determination of what in modern philosophy would be called the a priori categories of experience, that is, the modes in which this experience develops in space and time. So now we're dealing with space-time. Until then, we haven't. Or in other conditions of existence. So 11 is birth. That whole process of birth, where this will to touch, feel, experience has created consciousnesses. And here's the part you need to maybe visualize to really get this. We can see now with microscopes and ultrasound, right? You can get a sonogram. You can watch that little zygote in the womb that's just cells dividing, and you can see it changing form, where the head, body separate, arms, legs come out. These are all the energies of the Nidana now wanting to be. I want to be something that touches and feels and perceives its environment with the sense of touch. The sense of touch, the consciousness of touch, builds arms, fingers, feet, toes, skin. How do I want to experience that environment? Not just by touch, I want to smell it. I need to build something to smell. Olfactory nerves, something to send signals of differentiating smells. I need a nose, I need a port to experience that. And you can see when a nose is forming in the head. and fingers in the hands, arms and legs. You can see them, consciousness coming into being. A mouth, indentations, eyes, ears. You can watch them forming in this blob of cells. The things we attribute to, well, that's a human being. It comes with those. But what we don't think is that there are energy, karma, constantly instantiating themselves and really driving how this formation occurs in the womb. You're doing that. That's amazing. Mind blown. And of course, after birth, immediately the last of the chain, the 12th Nidana, is Jaramarana. That is decay. Decay's already there. Jara in this particular case meaning old age, and death, Marana. The inseparable complement to birth is decay and death. It's how we're made. We only want to check this out for a little while, and then we want to go back to being energy. That's fundamentally what we are. But we wanted this experience. Just saying that, and this is what Buddhahood, or Buddha-ness, our Buddha mind, knows implicitly, completely understands the process of all phenomena of life. In Buddhahood, you can look at life and see that it's a temporary instantiation of these nidana, of these forces, of this karma. And so you can be stunned by it, amazed by it, see it always for what it is, see it in others, share in that knowledge, bring them to experience that knowledge, release them from this attachment-based instantiation so that when it clocks out, they can have appreciated all the work that went into this perception, this mind, this knowledge. That's it. That's all of Buddhism. So all life, all phenomena is suffering. It's suffering because it suffers from the very mechanism that makes it so. Karma. Well, I'm already at 42 minutes. Shall I continue this with a part 2, the discussion of the aggregates? Because I really want you to contrast and compare. But I think you can already see where we're going. Just reading Evola reminds us of all our study of consciousnesses. This is how they came to be. The Nidana. Buddhism answers that riddle. And I keep thinking of Roger Penrose and his cyclical conformal cosmology. It's so Buddhist, it knock you down. All right. Yeah, I'm going to make a part 2 because it'll be far too long if I dive into this now. I wish I could have done it, but I don't think I could have shortened it without taking more away from it. So I hope that was helpful. Part 2 will relate the Nidana to the aggregates, and then I'll refer in the description, albeit after I upload it, or maybe not. Anyway, I'll try to put the links to these previous discussions of the 9 consciousnesses and skandhas and so forth for your reference. But I'll make a part 2 and I'll dig into this discussion because it's interesting the way it's worded. And you'll see the link with the Nidana as well as the 9 consciousnesses. So we'll get to that next. In the meantime, take care of your health. Be kind to yourself and others. And, like, subscribe, share. And I'll see you in the next one. You guys are amazing. And you should be amazed. Okay? See you later. Bye.